Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everyone. We're checking out Amberspire today. Welcome to everyone. I hope you are watching this stream on the company dime. I know I stream at awkward times. It's not the best time for courting an American audience, definitely, because most of you are asleep. But I stream when I can around dad stuff and other work stuff I've got on. And yeah, I didn't know a better word for it, triple I. So Amberspire is been published by Bithell Games, so Mike Bithell, sorry, who made Thomas is Alone. You'll notice like some of the indies that did well like 10 years ago have gone on to just continue making similar things. So if you take Inkle, who make sort of narrative games, they sort of kind of just carried on making their own things and then making tools for other people to make similar games. Bithell Games has become a publisher. So there are developers where they become publishers. I'm sort of interested in how that happens and how you decide whether to just become a big indie studio or a publisher. I've noticed that the indie studios which become publishers tend to have quite a broad portfolio, and I think it's because they would rather be involved in helping lots of interesting smaller games get made than just like have a niche that they work in. I don't know, I'd be interested to kind of speak to some folks about that and find out. Yeah, Amberspire looks really interesting. I don't know loads about it. I know it's a kind of digital board game. It's got this art style that's very reminiscent of Moebius, the French comic book artist, who you might look at this and think, oh, that looks a bit like the video game Sable. And that's because I think they're both drawing off of this comic book artist who made the Incal. But yeah, this is like it's a strategy kind of city builder. I think it's going to play a little bit like a big board game because it's dice driven. This is what Moebius art looks like. So if you've played the sci-fi game Sable, it's kind of a similar thing. And I guess the animated TV show Scavenger's Reign is kind of playing in this similar space. Psychedelic, pastels, not much shading, very kind of bold. And this is a board game that's kind of using that similar art style. It's a science fantasy setting, so think Dune. And yeah, Another World is actually similar art style there with that kind of flat shading. I think Dune, but we're doing a city builder game, and we're doing some story stuff, and it's dice based, which I'm interested in the UX of, because often I find when dice are used in video games they sort of don't work for me in certain ways, and it's really just that dice are so physical. And you have to put a lot of effort in to make them feel satisfying in a non-physical game. But yeah, I'm super interested in this. The other thing, so Lunar Division, I don't know how many people are on the team, but when I looked at the store, I noticed that loads of the project updates on the game have come from Holly Nielsen, who is someone that I've been following for a while, and they are a historian who is also a games person, and they're interested in games and history and games about history and stuff. So they've got someone working on the world building for this game, or who has worked on the world building for this game, who has like a really interesting professional background as like a historian that's interested in games and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm just really excited for this one, and I love the way it looks. And I just, as a combination of things, that's great because, you know, like I say, I'm always a bit curious when dice show up in digital games. I think it's going to not work. So finding a game that has those in that I'm otherwise quite tentatively excited for is cool. So we're going to check it out. I'm going to play it for like 3 or 4 hours, depending on how tired I get. I may do regular sessions on this, and this is where the publishers have sent me a key on this. They didn't do that out of the blue. I got in contact with them, basically experiencing this thing at the moment where I don't realize the channel is as big as it is. So I forget that I can literally reach out to any publisher about a game that I'm personally interested in, ask for a key, and 90% of the time I will get a key, because my perception of the reality of how well the channel is doing hasn't actually caught up with the reality yet. So one of the things I'm going to try and do each month is probably just pick a game that I am the most excited about and play it a couple of times, because it's just nice to look at good examples sometimes. Like, lots of the games I get sent are good, lots of them are not so good. I'm tending not to show the ones that I think are just not so basic that they're not interesting enough to watch. So when people send me prototypes and it's just a technical prototype and it's a grey box and there's no concept there of like what's supposed to make this thing fun, it's just like a character controller, those ones just go straight out the window now. And then stuff like this, I mean, there'll be people that debate whether or not something is indie if it's got a publisher. We're always going to have that conversation because people have really kind of drunk the solo developer Kool-Aid of it's only indie if you make it in your bedroom on a ZX Spectrum powered by a bicycle, that kind of thing. But these kind of publishers, you know, it's a publisher that started as an indie developer, has grown bigger, and now is funding interesting small projects. Again, I don't know how many folks are in this studio. It's big enough to have a kind of dedicated narrative designer as far as I can tell, but let's just see what we can learn from it. And also, if you're making anything in this space, if you're making a strategy game or something that uses board game metaphors in a digital game, hopefully there'll be some interesting stuff for you here. Windowed full screen. Hi. Yeah, I mean, AAA and free-to-play are different industries as well. I think when people talk about the games industry as one big thing, they're usually not really cognizant of how different all of these things are in terms of what they make and how they're made. So Mayhem said, what do you think the pitfalls of dice in games are? I think there's just such a physicality to them in real life that doesn't map onto doing something digitally. Because you can either make it really cumbersome and you can like physically pick them up and throw them in the game, which is going to be quite tedious to do over and over again. Like if you use Tabletop Simulator, it has you click, drag, and select them, and then press a button to roll them, and they all throw up in the air, which feels kind of nice. But I do think you need the physicality of them. You at least need all of the sound cues. And the other issue is that you can't always pick them up and manipulate them to see what's on the different sides. So you end up having to do tricks like, you know, spread them out and present them as a 2D net if you want to switch the tiles on them, which is a fun gimmick that's been done in physical games like Dice Forge and stuff like that. New Legend, I hope you're not tiring yourself out on the game dev hamster wheel today. Okay, let's check out what this opening story is telling us. Countless ages. We'll go for Patrick Stewart today. I'll do my best Patrick Stewart. Countless ages, golden and dark, have been recorded and forgotten by the scribes of humankind. Beneath worlds and amidst stars lingered history-written ruins. Around a nameless star orbited Amber, a planet of swirling glow and shadow. After the last empire's decayed, a moon was given to Amber, grown to entomb the spire that felled a sovereign. An age ago, a city on that moon fell to obscurity and began a slow return to prominence. Okay. We're doing sort of like fallen empire rising again type stuff. Very Gene Wolfe, yeah. It's very Gene Wolfe. It's a little bit Numenera, if you're familiar with the video game or the tabletop RPG Numenera, which is like, it's funny that whenever there's like a science fantasy thing that's not Japanese, we go to Gene Wolfe and Numenera and stuff because we don't get enough of it. Like Final Fantasy has been this vibe for ages, where they just mash together like airships and cyberpunk and fantasy and goblins and put it all in the same thing in this big melange. We don't do it so much in the West. It's why people were so about Clair Obscur, because the thing about science fantasy is you're just following the rule of cool. We put all of the cool stuff together. So what? What are you going to do about it? Welcome to Amberspire, a city built on an ancient mausoleum moon. Your goal is to advance the city through the tiers of renown and enter a golden era. So this kind of, what are these called? These Roman emperor hats. Laurels, they're called laurels. That's our kind of victory points type resource, I'm guessing, that is showing us here. Start by rolling dice to get resources, collect the furnace and kiln dice, then roll them. So we know what we're doing each turn, and we know we're getting different types of dice. So I'm guessing that... Is that a kiln? Oh, yeah. So I click on the kiln, and I get the dice from the kiln. And if I go down here... What, is there another... That's a landing pad. Yeah, I mean, the controls are very intuitive. Everything works the way I would expect it to. The actual grid feels very much like that game that we had in Collab Jam last year, the sort of city builder that people managed to somehow make in a month. Okay, so we got a furnace and a kiln, and those provide us with dice. So you can already see how this game is structured, right? We're building a city, and then the resource generation things of the city, all of the buildings and so on, are going to become the dice, which then determine what resources we get to build with. And the more that we build and kind of diversify our dice pool, the more kind of we're going to prosper. Very easy to intuit all of that from what we've seen so far. Once rolled, dice can be placed in other buildings as resources. If a resource cannot be used, you can re-roll dice or simply end the turn. Okay. In each cycle, you roll 3 groups of dice, then the moon will roll weather dice it has accrued. Is that the moon? This is the little... Okay, so this is how many rolls we get. And then the moon. And one of the things that's interesting about games like this... So this is a little bit similar to games like Dice Forge. Where you're just like constantly rolling... Or Roll for the Galaxy, where you're constantly rolling dice to get resources. And when you've got that much dependence on randomness, you have to have the randomness roll quite a lot, quite frequently. In order to sort of like balance out the randomness, right? Because the way they've structured this is we have 3 cycles before the moon does its thing and maybe some bad weather happens. And that means that the more time, basically, the more times you allow the player to roll the dice, the more their results are going to average out. And that will kind of ameliorate any issues that they have with having good or bad luck. And that's why... This is one of the reasons why in a deck builder you throw your hand of cards away at the end of the turn, because it cycles you through your deck more, and that means that if you have one really bad draw, it's kind of, you throw it away and it's like, okay, that doesn't follow on to the next turn. So these games where there's a lot of kind of input randomness at the start of the turn where you roll dice or you draw cards, you want players to do that as much as possible, because the more times they do that random procedure as part of their gameplay, the less likely a little bit of bad luck is going to totally screw them up. So that's kind of why you'll see things like this, where it's like, okay, the game is going to do something bad against you, but you get quite a lot of rolls or draws or whatever until that happens. In Slay the Spire as well, if an enemy has a big attack, you're going to get like 3 rounds of playing your cards before that big attack hits you, so you've got a chance to prepare for it. You have a small amount of rerolls available which refresh every cycle. So where are those? Those are there. So we've got 4 of this resource that lets us reroll stuff. So we're kind of doing a Yahtzee thing where we can, you know, use dice or reroll them. And we've got 4 to use in 3 sets of rolls. And I guess as we build up a bigger dice pool, this is going to become a bit rarer, or you know, we need to be more thoughtful about how to use this. Weather dice move and add terrain tiles like floodplains. Build a cistern to remove floodplain tiles. Okay, so this is going to screw with the map, basically, when the weather hits. Market buildings like the bazaar trade resources for influence, which is used to advance the city's renown. Buildings have a limited operating range. Dice can only go so far, and the landing pad can only build residents within a certain range. Constructing more than one of the same kind of building is vital to continue growing the city. Okay, so that's interesting. So when I highlight these dice, you can see this kind of fog of war comes in, and it shows me how far that resource can go from that building, and this one as well. So if I wanted to spend a resource over here, I can spend this dice over there, but I can't spend this dice over there because it doesn't reach far enough. That's an interesting mechanic as well. It's going to see how that plays out. Okay, we're going to roll the dice. New Legend, I like your description of that K-drama. I mean, as much as I hate to big up Jeffrey Bezos, I feel like Amazon is doing... Oh, no, it wasn't actually Amazon. It was shown on Amazon. Have you watched Soulmates, the AMC series? I watched that last week, and that was a pretty interesting series of curveballs in terms of how the genre shifted over the course of the anthology. I had a lot of fun with that. Okay, so we're going to use this now. And I don't really know what I can use it for. Ah, I can use it to build these? Is that the idea? These are my buildings I actually have. These are the buildings I can build. I've got a kiln there. I've got a crystallizer. So do I get that resource? Is that gone somewhere? Because I can't see... Oh, it's because it's the weather resource. They both rolled weather. That's not a great first turn. I feel like you should fudge it so I can't get weather the first time, but maybe you did that on purpose. Once this panel, open this panel again in the options menu, consult the manual for more information. What am I doing? Ah, I need to click to get the dice back. Okay, that's the flow. Am I actually going to get something this time? What's that? Earth. What, can I use it for anything? I'm so confused. Okay, I'm going to re-roll the weather because we only got weather last time. Okay. So, I see. So these aren't built yet. So this hatched out line is to show that this is a work in progress. Hasn't been built yet. Can't use that for anything. Can't store it. Disappointing. But I can re-roll it. So I'm going to re-roll it. Still can't use it for anything. Okay. This is a bad start. Yeah, Maui, I think you're right there. Yeah, so Hearthstone is a really good example of a type of game where they've used all of the UX of a card game, but then they've really strongly lent into stuff that only a video game could do. So yeah, pulling cards that you don't own is a good example, like Maui said in the chat. The one that they introduced with the Demon Hunter, where it's like the cards care about which position in your hand they are. So the Demon Hunter has an outcast keyword, which triggers an extra effect if the card is on the left or right outside of your hand, because they can enforce your hand. Oh, we've got some weather dice now. Am I supposed to? Oh, I get to choose where the storm does stuff. Is that right? I'm just gonna like blow up my whole town with clouds now. What does that do? Flood. Oh, I roll them, but I don't do anything with them. They happen randomly. I see. Okay, I was thinking, why are you allowing me to make that roll if I don't do anything with it? But you can re-roll them. So if you see the really bad cards show up, you can like deliberately... the really bad dice results show up. You can save your re-rolls until the weather happens and then use it to change the weather. That's an interesting trade-off. I like that. I've got nothing I can use these earth dice in. It's disappointing. Okay. That's finished now. I've built the set of the UK game, the 1990s UK game show, The Crystal Maze, has been built. Wonderful. And we've got a landing bay. Adds residents to the city. Now we've got a dice from the crystallizer, or a die. We're not getting into dice die today. It's upsetting. What was the thematic reason for the giant hole in the middle? They haven't given us one yet, which I find much more intriguing. I like that they haven't told us. Because it makes you ask that question, and I think that's good world building. I think the dev or the DM should know the reason, and then they shouldn't tell you. Or they should give you some tools for working it out, but not tell you. That's my preferred way of, because it continues to inspire a sense of wonder that way, you know. What was happening with that symbol coming off of the landing pad then? Oh, I'm not building anything, so I need to start building something so I've got something to use these on. So I can look at these now. There's this is very low on in terms of like how much guidance it gives you, but I don't really mind. Okay, that removes flood tiles. So I guess... Ah, I see. So you want to put it near houses? We're going to put one of these over here. I don't know if it actually needs to be near the flood tiles you want to get rid of, but... And then that is waiting for... So basically I can put any of these resources in there, but if I put salt or dust in there, it builds it quicker. Is that right? Oh, that's out of range. Oh, no. So what's that? That's a furnace. So I would need to build another furnace over here. And then the lines are showing me where the dice from the different buildings can reach to. Oh, there's some really crunchy spatial puzzling stuff here. Yeah, I think you have to be quite invested in understanding this game to get to the point where you know what you're doing. It's quite hands-off, but I like that approach. Okay. So can I cancel the cistern for now? Because I can't actually reach that with the stuff I want to... Maybe what I'll do is I'll just try and mirror the stuff that I started off with over here, so that I can build further. So we'll put a kiln over there. What does that need to build? That needs crystals and mirror. So I need to roll crystals. I'm going to try and re-roll this weather dice. See if we can get a... There we go. Make some progress on building the kiln. And then we'll be able to build that from that kiln, I think. And then we'll be able to clear up the floods. And a bazaar we don't have. Spend resources to increase your city's influence. I mean, we need one of them. Obviously. Can we put one over here? That's a nice place for it. There's a nice square naturally around that bit. Can I put these in? Yeah. Let's build it. It's time to get demonetized by putting the song How Bizarre by Corner Shop on. I'm going to have it on in the background. Can't actually find it. Okay, we're going to roll the weather dice now. So we got 3 rounds of doing what we want. Then the weather is like, haha, I'm going to mess you up. So storm. Oh no, that's the name of the dice. So rust. These are rust. I don't want rust. And that's flood growth. So that's going to take the floods that are already there and make them bigger. I'm going to re-roll one of these rusts because rust sounds scary. Oh, it's going to make a new flood instead. Okay. Oh, these are rust. Are these the rusts? These big blocks. What's the difference? If adjacent to a building destroys itself and the structure, removed with a ruster. Oh man. We can't prepare with a ruster because we haven't got it yet. I keep forgetting that this is a dice building. I feel like they need an indicator that you can get a dice out of them, or a die out of them. Unknown. Has someone asked you how the game jam would work with visual novels? Well, the way that the game jam works with visual novels is if you want to make a visual novel, you do a different game jam, where a visual novel will be a suitable entry. Because the purpose of the game jam is to practice your game design skills, not your storytelling skills. And although those things can be the same thing, if you want to enter the game jam and tell a story, you'll need to find a way to work out how to do that. And if the only game engine you know is a visual novel engine like Ren'Py, then you'll have to work out a way to do that in a wordless way. But I've showed this multiple times. There's indiegamejams.com. It has a massive Gantt chart with all of the game jams happening on any given day. And there are always loads of narrative ones going on. And I don't, generally speaking, I don't want people to enter visual novels into a general game jam, because then what you're doing is you're forcing all of the judges to sit there and read loads of story and then judge your story as a game when it is fundamentally a story. And that's not a good place for that to happen, because you're not entering it into a place where that's what people have come, the skill that people have come to practice, or the skill that people are kind of qualified to comment on in terms of giving you feedback as judges. So I've done writing for games. I've done bits of narrative design for games. It's not my specialism. And I think... And I'm not saying this to be like gatekeepery or to be like visual novels aren't games, but writing a bunch of interactive story is not really game design unless you get super into like how the interactivity is structured. And I think most people that would enter a visual novel for a game jam are not really kind of thinking on that level about what they're doing yet. So I would much rather people focused on mechanical game design, and that's what the brief is intended to get you to do. That's why I showed you stuff like Florence and unpacking in the last video I did about it. Okay, I can't do anything with these. So we can't reach that to build. We need to finish off the kiln. I can't put either of these in the kiln. Finding the UX a little bit confusing because it's like highlighting where it came from rather than where it can go. And the more interesting, useful information would be, where can I put this? Can that go in the kiln? I need mirror or crystal. Okay, neither of these can make mirror or crystal. The crystallizer can. Okay, so we're going to keep re-rolling that until we get something we can use. It'll take me a while to learn these icons. Right, mirror or... The mirror looks like a mirror and the crystal looks like a crystal. That's what I need to remember. What? Is that going to finish now? I know I've said a lot of things lately that have felt very dismissive of stories in general, but I don't do this to sit and read text out for ages on a stream. It's not the interesting part of the games to me. Sometimes it is, but it has to be tied to something that I'm interested in doing, and choosing dialogue options in a visual novel is not one of those things. We're going to get some rust. The rust is going to eat these buildings if it triggers that patch. Oh, it didn't. So the floodplain is kind of a... The floodplain stops you growing because you can't build there, but the rust actually actively kind of destroys your city. So I'm guessing this is why you get the cistern earlier than the ruster, because the cistern is like a simpler... Okay, brick can be put in there to grow the city. I think brick is the only thing that I can actually generate at the moment that would do that. Really need to learn the symbols. Right, so... The only thing I'm looking for there is the salt. Salt and dust. Okay, cool. This one is... That's looking for salt. I've got somewhere to put earth there. I can't reach that. That's annoying. There's a lot to hold in your head. So that's going to turn into influence, is that right? Yeah. Can I put that in there? No, I can't. Anywhere I can put this? Doesn't show you the valid moves in a way that I find very intuitive. And it's annoying because I'm liking everything about the game, but I would like a little bit more of an indication of whether or not this dice has any legal moves attached to it when I hover over it. I'm going to re-roll the weather dice. And that is earth. I can put that in there. Okay. Well, we've sold a bunch of stuff at the bazaar. Some metal and some mud. The classic resources. I can't reach that apart from there. And it needs... What can be made here? This can make bricks, earth, or salt. And this can be built with salt. So I want to re-roll this until it makes something that can contribute to that. Otherwise we can't get rid of our... Okay, I'm going to re-roll that again. Can't get rid of this. I kind of feel like I would also like a little bit more color coding on the die to show which building they came from. Because you sort of have to... You always have to hover on them to see which building... I mean, I can see that that's the crystallizer because the top symbol is a crystal, right? But if that dice was the same color as this building, and that dice was the same color as this building, it would just be a little bit easier to understand everything that's going on in the game at a glance. One of those things. Make it more pretty and also make it so I don't have to hover over these every time to see what they are. Okay. Grab these again. I also really need an indicator on a building to tell you that there's a dice there waiting for you to pick it up. Right. So this is salt. Can that go there? Yes. And it makes sense that you would use salt to remove flood tiles as well. There we go. Kiln. Right, that can't reach. I've got mirrors there. So I think what I need to start doing is look for something I want to build and then look for what's in range that can build it. So this can build metal, scrap, and mirrors and crystals. So something that's near both of these that uses those things. Crystal and metal. Landing pad. Adds residents to the city. Build another landing pad that's near these guys. Just don't have enough houses around it to build it. Okay. Dangerous place to put that because of the rust. Let's put it a little bit closer in. So I think one of the things that I'm not doing enough is just preempting where I want things to go so I've got more place to spend my dice. So the kiln produces bricks, earth and salt. So if I put something here that uses both kiln resources, then I'll always be able to make progress on building that thing. Crystallizer on the other side, I guess, would be helpful to have at some point. Because we're going to need those resources in both directions at some point anyway. So that brick, earth and salt. That can be built with... No, I don't have the right stuff for that. The furnace takes bricks to build and makes metal and scrap. So we'll put a furnace over here. Second furnace. So there's sort of like a basic resource tree type thing that goes kiln, furnace, crystallizer by the feel of it, I guess. There we go. So it does show you where they can go. I think the thing that's tripping me up is it doesn't show you when something can go nowhere, and that's kind of the thing that's confusing me. Okay. Cool. It's taking me a little while to learn the icons, yeah, for sure. I know these ones now. That's the rust is going to spread. Can't re-roll it. Just really hoping this one over here doesn't eat our town. Okay, so dice there. I feel like they should have a little symbol to let you know there's a die there. And then it changes when you pick it up. It becomes hollow. Okay, what's that? That's crystallizer, that can go there. Kiln towards building the thing over there. Oh, thanks. Get some city growth. So the landing pad is like bringing people in from space, and that's what's going to spread the city out and make the houses. See? That's cool. I like how that works. It just sort of like plays a little AI game of Snake next to the landing pad and draws the next bit of the city. That's neat. Yeah, if you place things well, you sort of get to a situation where you're like... You've got your places that you want to put your resources to finish your new buildings, but you've also got the trading spots where you can just place them to get more population or influence or whatever to win the map. And it's all about building it so that you can always do both of those things, I guess. And we're going to finish both those buildings this turn, so I guess we start to look at where we can build our next thing. And I would like to build another crystallizer on the other side of the map, but we need to put it in range of enough resources. So we can't put it there because there's houses. There's a great little urban planning kind of puzzle going on here as well, where it's just like, hey, you... Oh no, you can put it over the houses. What I'm trying to do is just make sure it stays connected to 2 of those lines, because that's going to make it quicker to build. Because more of the die we roll then are going to land on things that we need. No, it can't go there. It's red when I put it in that location. So there's a really interesting puzzle here of like... you need to have it near houses to have enough population to build it in the first place, but if it's too... it can't be overlapping the actual buildings themselves. So I think we need another landing pad. We need to grow the city out in a different direction for any of this to work. So let's go over here, I guess. Put the salt in there. So we're going to get rid of these flood tiles now, or we're going to start to do that. Cool, I'm liking it. The dice feel good. Like the fact that they occasionally get this kind of slow roller that takes a little while. Right, that's going to do... flood grow. Rust grow. Rust grow, okay. Reroll one of the rusts. I would like as little rust growth as possible. I got the same thing anyway. Please don't eat my buildings, Mr. Rust. We do have a delete building mode, so maybe I could have put that thing there, and if I just got rid of a couple of houses. What was I trying to build? It was a crystallizer I was trying to build over here, wasn't it? So... listen, guys. Oh no, I can't. I can only build the buildings I can... I can only delete the buildings I can build. I can't delete houses. Disgraceful. I guess this is what they call hope punk, when the government can't just knock down your house to build a crystallizer whenever they fancy it. And when there's a mysterious, beautiful hole in the ground, and no one talks about it. Okay, so the blue... when I hover over these, the blues show me like valid positions to place the dice. So it feels like a lot of confusion that I have early in the game, strangely, is caused by just not having enough city to see how the how all of the like little UX helper features function. I'm gonna re-roll the storm. See what we can get out of that. That is is that salt? Yeah, it's salt. So I can't put that in there because I've already got something in there. Okay, so look, the way the cistern works is you can reduce the flood more in a single turn, but you need to put different resources in it. So if I look at this has not got anything that can reduce resources. Can work in the cistern, sorry. So I'll just end the turn. Oh, Robin. This is yes, kind of nicely chill as an activity. I'm enjoying everything here. Okay. My main UX beef now is that I can't easily see which buildings give me dice when I go to pick them out at the start. But you can also see how you do need to manually pick them, because at some point this tray is going to get too small for the amount of buildings you have, so you have to be selective about where you're building from, which is a neat puzzle that can kind of develop as the game goes on as well. Okay, we're going to build that landing pad so we can get more citizens. We love our citizens. I don't have I keep getting crystals here that I can't spend, so I need to build something to put them into. So maybe we need another kiln over this side. Oh, we've got one there. You know what the wise ancients used to say? You can never have too many kilns. That's what they used to say, the wise ancients. I can also build another landing pad with crystal. Crystals and mirrors. Yeah, let's have another kiln over here somewhere. Even though it's right next to that other one. Right next to that one, but it's not going to hurt us early on to have too much of a good thing. Which means that later on we have to be selective about which die we pick up. Kiln in the name of. Some of those that craft vases are the same that build houses. Kiln in the name of. Ugh. What can this make? Crystals and mirrors. Let's re-roll that. I want to get a crystal mirror to finish my new kiln. Yeah, I would, personally I would love more games like this, but I think they require people who make computer games to actually play Euro games, and this is very clearly made by people that play games like Wingspan or Roll for the Galaxy, and it's like a love letter to those with like a unique art style and theme, and then the video gamey stuff that would be annoying to do in a board game, like measuring the distance. It's great. It's really, really good. But, I have to always, because we're on YouTube, and, 80% of the YouTube game dev audience come to channels like this to be told what to make in order to automatically make generational wealth. I have to make the caveat. I'm saying this is good. That doesn't mean you should necessarily make one. You need to have the relevant skills and taste profile to know how to make one of these games well. And this idea executed very, very well from what I can see so far. But yeah, it's very Eurogamey. I wouldn't recommend someone make one of these unless you're willing to play a bunch of Euro games as research. I talk about taste a lot, and like how you develop your design sensibility out of the games that you like, or games that maybe you think are okay, and like thoughts about how you would fix them. And the thing with board games is they are quite expensive to get into, but the way that I got into board games was I listened to every episode of the Shut Up and Sit Down podcast, and then I joined a local board game group, and that meant I could go and play other people's board games instead of having to buy every game that I wanted to play. And so they are a more expensive thing to get into than video games. In order to do that baseline level of research you would need to do to make a good digital single player Euro game. But you don't have to buy them to play them. And there's decent digital versions of lots of these games as well. Yeah, I think from both a UX and art point of view, I would really like the dice to be themed to the color of the building that they come from. You know, like when we get a furnace die, I feel like it should be the primary color of the building, and then the symbol should be in the secondary color or something. I don't know, maybe having the symbols as not a specific color for the symbol would confuse people, but I would, you know, the crystallizer should have these sort of lilac bluey color dice and stuff. Because they would be prettier and they would be satisfying to collect, like in Roll for the Galaxy, but it would also make it easier for me to quickly look at these and differentiate which these two came out of. I need to queue some more buildings up. And there's nothing up here that so this is a building purpose view. So the yellow buildings create dice. The landing pads are the brown that create population. The market is where I can put dice to just get influence, which is how we win the game. So you'll notice there's no money as well. There's no money in this. It's all just resources which are used to build, or you put them in the market, and that advances you towards winning with this score. We're over the thing that we need, so I need to find out why that's not triggering something. The terrain building in blue is getting rid of bad stuff for us. And then residents are... I really love the push and pull of, like, you need lots of residents, you need to build landing pads, you need to bring colonists in. That's going to spread everything out. But they also get in the way of you building your actual buildings. And you can't just demolish them, because... that's great, because it kind of... It creates a puzzle out of the idea of having a utopian kind of sci-fi setting. Because what we could do is we could have all of this like beautiful art and chill music and this kind of veneer of it being being utopian, right? But if I were then able to just like demolish a bunch of people's houses whenever I fancied to put whatever I wanted down, that would clash thematically. And the fact that you can't makes a really interesting puzzle. So there's a really nice knot there of theme of the game and tone of the game, like the kind of ethical tone of what kind of leader you're supposed to be in this game, and the mechanical puzzle of, okay, you've put all of these extra houses down, or they've been put down for you, and now you have to build around that. It's just really, really crunchy, and it just fits together really nice. So city progression, if I click on that, advance the city to peripheral. Okay. Okay, so we've got enough influence, but we don't have enough residents. So I need to keep putting die in the landing pads to bring more houses down. And then we're going to unlock all of these buildings. Look how pretty they are. We've got a tea house where people go and crush up. It says it produces tea, earth, and root, but I think they crush up these crystals and smoke them in a little pipe. That's what I would do anyway. That's what I would do, because I'm the super hands of UK game dev YouTube. Robin said it doesn't snap in live. So I think what you're feeling as well, like I feel a similar thing. I feel a similar thing about it. It feels a little bit clunky to interact with, and I think some of that is just how sudden things are. Like when I do that and that, if I kind of scroll around the screen and do this, there's this horrible strobing effect, right? And if I were being really pernickety and I were like the art director or the technical artist or whoever is in charge of that sort of thing on this game, I would make those things fade over like 1/3 of a second. So whenever that vignette changes and those lines appear and everything. So if someone is just doing this, you really have to like leave the mouse to rest on a point before all of the tooltips and all of the vignettes and the lines fade in. Give it like, it's just 0.2 of a second or 0.3 of a second to fade all of those changes in. And it would make it feel much more kind of, a little bit more relaxed, I think. Okay, so I got really waylaid then. I don't think I have anything to use these in. No, I don't. We'll end that turn. The crack is very Moorish, yeah. Oh, that's... Is this full up? Oh yeah, these are the ends. So I need... Now I'm already at the point where I need to start thinking about where I pick the dice up from. So it's sort of like just adding little bits to the spatial puzzle as it goes along. It feels very well paced in terms of how all that happens. I did feel a little bit... what's the word? I felt a little bit lost in the first sort of half hour because it just throws you in the deep end. But now it's just gradually adding little bits to puzzle. So this is a really good example of how like a limitation that's just very clearly visible and physical can add to the complexity of like the decision space that the player is thinking about, because we could just have an infinite amount of die that you pick up, but because this tray has this physical limitation, now it's added this element of, right, I really need to think before I even do that stage of going around picking up all the die. And it's like, it's added complexity to that puzzle without really adding anything apart from a limitation, right? The limitation kind of increases the amount of thinking that the player has to do. That's great. Okay, so I want to keep feeding stuff into here. And this, if this was a brick, which it's not, and it's still not, then I could use it to grow the population, but I can't do that right now. Yeah, I keep rolling stuff I can't use. So let's put the furnace in there. And, oh. That over there. I guess I'm just going to keep rolling until I get stuff that can get me more population. Can't re-roll any of them, so I've just got to let them do what they wilt. Yeah, I think I'd like the camera movement to be a little bit smoother as well. It feels quite harsh. I imagine it's worse to watch than it is to play, but it doesn't feel great when you're playing it either. Okay, so I want these. So I'm deliberately picking the stuff now that is going to let me use my landing pads, if I can. And then secondary would be this, so we go these. And actually, I don't... Even if I could pick up one more die, I should focus on the things that actually produce what I want them to, because otherwise I'll forget and I'll start spending the resources on things that I don't need to do. I think that's part of the... Is that... Yeah, okay, cool. So put that up there, we'll get some more houses. Just re-rolling for bricks. I'm guessing what will happen, so that we don't get like an explosion in how many different types of resources there are. As we build more buildings, there will be like resources where... Oh, there will be die where it's the same resources you've had for the whole game, but they're like weighted in a different way. You know, they roll fewer weather things, or you get a building that combines two outputs that you had previously or whatever. That's kind of what I would expect. And now I think we can progress the city, which is why this is lit up. Advanced peripheral. A palpable energy has emerged. The once forgotten settlement begins to press on the cosmological fabric of humanity. Advance the city beyond the highest tier of influence to complete the game. Okay, cool. We've got new stuff. So we can build a ruster now to get rid of rust tiles. I feel like that should be quite high priority. That can take crystal or dust. And a crystallizer has a 50% chance of building either of those things. So we just need to build this near the crystallizer. And we're going to build one there. And we're also going to get one ready over here, because that's got 2 crystallizers feeding into it. Although, not going to help because it's not near enough buildings. So we need a way to build more houses over this side as well. So we're going to need a landing pad over here. It's like you need houses for the landing pad, but you need the landing pad to make houses. Classic town planning problem. The thing I like about when we play a game that's been released like this, and we're picking at all these little UX things, is I bet there is a Jira ticket for every single one of them. They already know. They already thought to do everything we've suggested. You know, everything about this game is so competent that when we point out these tiny little things, like, oh, I think the camera should be smoother. Oh, I think that thing should fade in over a quarter of a second. I bet at least one person in that team has wanted to do that, and it just got deprioed on the list of Jira tickets. Okay. Landing pad's going to have to wait. But what do we need to build a landing pad? We need metal, brick, and crystal. So we've got everything we need over that side, but it's just difficult to get it to line up with where the population currently is. So we've got a ruster there. What else can we build that's new? We've got tea house. Needs 12 rolls dice for resources, and it produces tea and roots. And tea can be used. Where can tea be used? Oh, tea feeds the landing pad. So maybe we want a tea house over here between the 2 landing pads. We want it quick before it gets too busy. And then all the NIMBYs start protesting. They go, I don't want a tea house. I want a tea house in my back garden. We'll bring unsavory types around. Arena. That produces canvas, daylight, root, and music. I want one of them. Right, canvas can be used in the landing pad, and root can be used in the trading thing. So I would really want, if I was going to build an arena, I would want it to reach a landing pad and the problem is it's showing me the lines to where it can build, but it's not showing me where its own lines would go to. This is a lovely crunchy puzzle. Well, I kind of wish that the lines showed you like a little directional chevron animation to show you whether it's the resources coming out of the building you're planning to the other buildings or coming in, because you kind of need both bits of information to plan. And at this stage, it's showing me, okay, here's where you get the resources to build this building, but it's not showing where the resources from this building could get to out of the buildings that currently exist. Sun mirror creates daylight and dust. Interesting. And the ruster uses dust. So let's make a sun mirror over by the ruster if we can. Needs a lot of houses. Okay, I think we're good to go. So we want to build that. What does that need? Dust. Can't make dye yet. Okay. So I think my strategy at the moment is I know that the bricks from the kiln can always be used to build more houses with the landing pads. So what I want to do is look around, see if there's any special resources I want to build my new buildings with, pick those dye first, and then whichever other dye slots I have left afterwards, I'll just automatically pick the kilns, because any bricks I have can be spent to grow the population. When in doubt, more houses. And then the mirror we can't use. Not going to do any rerolls this time. I mean, the thing, someone said I'm curious to see what other maps will look like. I think the way that this game works is it's just like a campaign is the map. And there'll be stuff arranged differently in terms of the stuff on the base, but I don't think this is like a series of things, because when we go here, it just said like when you get to the most advanced stage, you win the game kind of thing. So it's very much just single player board game. I imagine there might be some scoring stuff where you can try and beat yourself again over time and all of that kind of stuff. You know, if you're the kind of person that's into playing board games and beating yourself, which I is a Venn diagram that crosses over more than you would think. What's that over there? What's that hovering? There was like a little hovery thing. What's that? What's that? What's that symbol? Let's re-roll one of these crystallizers and see if we can get some dust to... I need my ruster. I need some salt out of these kilns as well to build that. The houses building is satisfying. Oh, nature. What are these? Grass. That's some real Scavenger's Realm grass. I bet if you go in that, you start hallucinating about your, you know, people back home. An 8-foot-tall ghost of your dad shows up and tells you that he's not proud of you. That kind of stuff. When in range of a building placed in the world to construct, adds a die to the weather pool, removed with the habitat. When in range of a building placed in the... Okay, so when you put a plan next to that, you get more bad weather. It's like the planet is like, no, 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 no. No, 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 no. We need some rust busters. We really do. Dust, crystal, and dye. I mean, that's the only thing that can contribute to that at the moment, which is not great. Maybe I need to build more of the basic resources. The tea house needs dust as well, so I'm going to put a crystallizer over here. And... I mean, I'm already getting that feeling that I often get with city builders where it's just like, okay, I get the game now. I really want to restart again so I can do it in a more efficient way, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna persevere. The problem I get playing a game like Frostpunk is just I constantly want to... So I can sort of see when I'm losing and then I'm like, could start again. Okay, let's re-roll. I just want some dust from my crystallizer rather than crystals. Is that too much to ask? The way these work is great. Oh, if there's like a prototype for this, it's like a paper prototype or a tabletop simulator prototype, I would love to see it and chat with the dev about it at some point, because I'm very interested in that workflow. I feel a bit stuck at the moment. Maybe what I need to do is... No, that needs crystal... If I could get dye there, then it's going to build a lot quicker, but I don't think I have anything that can make dye. Scrapyard. Buildings constructed within 5 distance get 3 resident range. So the scrapyard... It's going to like make your buildings stronger in terms of how far away you can build from your houses. That's interesting. Maybe I need that over here somewhere, because this was the place where I was really struggling with the range of the residences. Not going far enough for me to expand in this direction. We'll put one over there anyway. Maybe I'm just not building enough landing pads and I need to spread out quicker. I like the fact that the game just wants me to work this out for myself though. Because that's where the juice will live for this being replayable. Like, if you can do really well on your first turn, then it's not going to have much shelf life. So yeah, you see that +1? That's the bonus that would be getting added by... Oh no, actually I'm not sure what that is. I thought it was from this, but... Right, the weaver can make dye, which could help us build the ruster. But I can't get it close enough. Ah, there. So some of these buildings are quite small and you can slot them into the existing city. Just have to look for the gaps. Oh, so that can't go there because the bazaar already has a metal in. I think we should have a different color coding from the blue when that's the case. Okay, what do we need to build the weaver? Brick, earth, and daylight. I'm guessing daylight is like solar power, but it keeps the kind of mystical science fantasy theming if we don't refer to it in modern terms. Right, so we want to build that. So we want to roll these kilns. Yeah, it really feels like the puzzle starts to sing when you're starting to have to care about where all the resources come from. It's great. That can roll into there. But it does make this kind of visual flashing thing harsher. Okay, so what have we got? Nothing new there. So that's going to help us build our tailor or whatever it's called. That's going to make dye, which will help us finish the ruster, which is probably one of our sort of highest priorities right now because it's going to eat our houses. The amount of times I've done a reroll and got the same thing. It's annoying. And I know it's just my perception of randomness rather than the real randomness. I know. I know what humans be like with these things. But hey. It hurts me in my soul. Okay, scrapyard. Oh, we've built that now. I didn't realize I should have rolled that this time. Oh well. I'll just put stuff where I can put it. There's something new up here that we haven't seen as well. When a dice result has an event symbol, it is collected here. After 3 symbols happen, an event will happen. Okay. We're trying to build here. Needs to build from there. That needs to build from there. And then those two. Reroll one of these. Let's reroll that one. What's that? Is that ink? No, that's silk. Okay, we can use the silk to build the tea house. Lovely. Nice curtains for the tea house. I'm just moving chat up. I just realised it's on my head. Why chat always be on my head like that? Of course I got a rust when I rerolled it. I had a spare reroll that I just wasted. We're getting some calm weather now. Okay, we need to roll the weaver, that crystallizer, that kiln, whatever that is, and those ones. Tea house is halfway done now. Keep building the scrapyard. I'll keep pumping stuff into the system to get rid of flood tiles. I don't think it's actually near enough any to do anything, but which, ooh, that may, so maybe we delete 2 instability dice will be added to the weather roll if you destroy the cistern. Gonna do it anyway. So we get that space back to put something in. So let's do something with that. So what can we build that's going to help us construct these things? No, we don't want to get rid of anything else. But the sun mirror needs salt, metal, or mirror. The scrapyard needs scrap. The furnace is too big to go there. We can't put a furnace there. Don't need a ruster there. Maybe we could put another weaver down though. Will that fit there? There's not enough houses. So I was thinking if I clear that space, I might be able to build something little in there. Some little useful building, but there's just not enough. Not enough workers nearby. So I think what happens is these darkened out buildings are the ones where they already have a job. Yeah, this resident is being used to construct a tea house. So the ones that are still light are the ones that can be used in a new construction. And the ones that are dark don't have any effect. So when I'm putting this down and looking for that number to go up to 18, I need to place it somewhere where the buildings are lit up. Because these are all being used to build stuff. And that's kind of what stops you just being able to place loads and loads of building plans down that you don't really intend to finish anytime soon. So you have to genuinely be trying to finish the buildings that are on the map. Otherwise, you're just going to get this blocked backlog. Well, I destroyed my system for no reason, but it's fine. It's fine. I didn't need it. We just get some instability die this time. Yeah, I think it is intentional. I think this is supposed to feel quite chilled out. I think there's a reason why the danger is the rust and the elements rather than anything more perilous. I think we're trying to do sort of what if a setting like June was utopian and nice. That's why you can't demolish people's houses. It works for me. It works very well for me, I think. The types of Eurogame that this is based on usually tend to be quite low conflict, and when they try and use these sort of mechanics and then model something more dramatic, it tends to feel a little bit tagged on. Okay, let's re-roll that one, because if we get a die... Oh, no, we're going to get an... Oh, that's canvas. Okay. Ah, there we go. Don't know why they have a blue background. Not sure what's going on with the symbols there. If it's just like a tier thing, or if it's a special version of that. Growth! Hell yeah, that's satisfying. Okay, so canvas and tea, good resources. Doing lots and lots of house building off the back of those now. That's cool. That's going to make it easier to plan more stuff now, because we need those illuminated houses to be able to make anything else. What we really need is a landing pad over here. We needed it for a while. And we need a ruster over here as well. Re-roll the tea house. It's a lot easier to work out which die to re-roll now, because some of these have much more kind of sort of expensive resources on. So if I've got one with one of these blue resources on and it's on a weather, that feels like a no-brainer that I need to re-roll it. And that's good, right? Well, I think what you want in a very thinky game is you want it to sort of go back and forth with having a new layer of stuff for the player to think about, where they're like, oh my god, and then at some point something becomes a little bit of a no-brainer, and then you're sort of giving them a bit of time to relax. And it's the same sort of thing as when you're making an action game and you're trying to bring people in and out of the flow channel by making it a little bit too hard and then a little bit too easy, and alternating those things. I think a lot of sort of management type games, when you get some sort of automation element, that's there to do that as well. So you have to think too hard about this thing. It's like hurting your brain. You're doing it for a long time, and then suddenly that thing chills out a little bit. Okay, something has happened. This will be that event ticker, I guess. The city has drawn the attention of a new off-world faction, Deus. Deus are a nomadic religious order in a fervent quest to maintain the corporeality of their god. Small cadres travel the galaxy in search of artifacts, converts, and political assistance to maintain the inertia of their faith. It is rumored that the Deus Knights have supernatural abilities, but these are so rarely seen that they cannot be resolved. Their favor adds 2 dice storage spaces. Their penalty removes 2 dice storage spaces. They're cool. It's very Numenera coded, which I like. I really like the Numenera setting, but the video game of it was just a little bit too dense for me. What's going to happen here? Structure loss. So when you delete a building, you get a chance to also just lose some buildings. The game really doesn't want you to be an urban planning bastard who's just constantly blowing up people's houses and stuff. No effect until higher strength and non-neutral disposition. Okay, I don't know how that happens, so let's just ignore it for now. There's some weird space Templars hanging out. Just make them some nice tea. You know, show them around a bit. Try not to tick them off. They're probably fine. Ah, we've got a route. The first time we've had a route. We can put it in the arena. And we can put that there. And we should really think about what we're going to do with all these new houses. What we're going to build near them. Let's re-roll that. See if we can have a perfect turn. Don't think I can do anything with them. Oh yeah, I can. I can use it to finish the ruster. Finally. Right, I think it's time to build a ruster over this side now if we can. Yeah, let's do it right over there. And then that's going to take crystals from these two. Okay. End that turn. Also, if you like the look of this and you haven't played Dawnfolk yet, I would strongly recommend playing Dawnfolk. It's got this kind of like single-player strategy game vibe. It feels like something that could have been designed for the SNES. You know, like a grid-based mini 4X that you can play with quite comfortably with a controller. Really like that game. This is probably deeper than that. Although that game has loads and loads of modes and levels and stuff, I would like to go back and do a longer play of that at some point. So that's producing daylight, which I can't actually use for anything over there by the looks of it. Tea and roots. Maybe we can do our landing pad over this side now. It would be nice. Yeah. Yeah, landing pad. And probably another ruster over here if we can. Okay, so we want that, and that, and that, and everything that we need to build this ruster. And then that needs roots and dye, which can both come... Oh no, dye can come from there. Okay. That one. And the fact that if you annoy these knights, you lose 2 dye storage spaces. That's harsh. It's really harsh. Okay, let's zoom. Can we zoom out? Oh, that's as far as we can zoom out. I feel like I need to zoom out more now. No, let's leave that one for now. Get rid of some rust. Finally. It's finally rust busting time. That was a good turn. A storm in the cloud layers of amber drew a stream of glow into the city, enveloping a neighborhood. The glow corroded houses and sickened residents, or preemptive treatment was administered. So I can choose one of these outcomes, and I can choose the nicer outcome by spending some of my influence. So we're going to do that. We're going to... I don't want 12 instability die. The game would definitely not win the self-explanatory jam. No, it would not. You're right there. Pretty great, though. Thanks to the publisher for sending me a key for it. I did request a key, they didn't just do it out of the blue. I have yet to actually be sent a key out of the blue for something I wanted to play. I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean I have such a mental backlog of like released games that I see that I think look really cool and want to play. And that means if someone just sends me like a random game key on launch day, the chances that it will be more appealing to me than the 10 games that I've been wanting to play for the last month or whatever is going to be just really low. Okay, we're going to roll these. I've still got 2 rerolls left, so let's look at what the worst outcomes are. Structure loss times 3. Let's re-roll that one. And let's re-roll one of the rust grows, because it would be nice to not have that happen. Oh, excellent. That was good. That was a good outcome. The rust is over there. That's fine. Okay. Roll both of these, because we need this ruster quite quickly. Prioritize the rusters as much as we can. And be good to get the arena finished, I guess. This Weaver is really well positioned because it produces stuff that can either go in there to get loads more residents, or it can go in there to remove more rust, although I think maybe the ruster is now too far away to be doing anything useful, but it's fine. Let's re-roll that one. This is really lagging behind this one. There we go. That's another build on that. I think I should make another weaver over this side because the resources it produces are quite useful. And if I can get it so it can hit either a landing pad or something I need to build. I've grayed out too many of the buildings over there, I think. Let's put one there. Fine. Not ideal, but it will do. Okay, what's the arena doing now? Spend resources to increase the city's influence. So this is basically the same as the bazaar, but it takes a different set of resources. It takes the bazaar takes the more physical products, and the arena takes the more cultural stuff like tea and clothes and stuff. So is the event symbol just the blue background on the T and all of those things? Maybe. I don't know. Right. We've got capacity to build some more stuff over here. This needs mirrors or dye or root to build. So I think now we will try and build our weaver over here so that we can feed dye into that if we get the chance. That would be good. And then do we have capacity to build a landing pad over here? Yeah. Really been needing to build out in this direction, but I needed to deal with the rust threat first. I don't know, the dice feel pretty good to me. I think they could get a bit sluggish if we went a bit further with how rolly they were. It's rolly enough for there to be enough of a delay for it to be satisfying, you know? Which you need. You really need that in a digital dice game. You need that because it's that, oh, is it going to land on the thing I want kind of moment. One sec, I think I've got a part. Sorry. Yeah. The constant stream of small Amazon packages as I try to make everything work. My fun tech drama of this week is I bought an NAS for doing backups on my network, and partly because I needed to have it to have business insurance. They were like, how often do you back up your work and how do you do it? And I was like, and I bought it, and it was just the case with no hard drives in. I had to order the hard drive separately. I was like, how can it be that expensive and it doesn't have any storage built into it? What's wrong with you people at the NAS factory? Okay, we're going to get a little bit of rust growth and some weather. Ah. New cistern over here then, I guess. So funny that that's a banned word. I'm sorry we had to ban a word that we could have quite interesting adult conversations about, but the evangelicals are so boring. Oh, see, you're doing something that you've been... Are you making a game? Are you doing some code? You doing some artwork? Oh. Huh. Is that a hobby you've been doing all your life? Is that a hobby you've been doing for 3 decades? Why don't you automate it? Why don't you get a machine to do it? It can't be very fun. It's not like you enjoy doing it. Why don't you automate it? Unfortunately, too many people who want to talk about the banned word. That's the only type of conversation they want to have. Convincing you that you should use it, even if you don't want to, for reasons that have almost nothing to do with ethics anymore, and everything to do with the fact that you just enjoy doing the crafty bit. It's funny, like the amount of people that I've met who, you know, they are seniors or they're managers in some sort of technical or creative role, and they hate it because they never wanted to manage people. They wanted to do the hands-on work, but they hit a ceiling, and then it's like, well, if you want to earn more money, you've got to become a manager now. And they didn't want to become managers. They didn't want to become, you know, the prompt engineers of 10 years ago, which was, you know, working out how to develop juniors and tell them, set them briefs and stuff. They wanted to do the work themselves, but most industries don't value people who can do the hands-on work to a high enough standard, so they go, oh well, the only way that you can actually get an increase in your pay and be treated with like a greater degree of respect is to take on managerial roles, even if managing other people isn't within your skill set. And that's why it's infuriating when people are like that. I don't want to tell someone else what to do. I want to do it myself. If I didn't want to do the thing myself, I wouldn't be doing it, and I never would have started doing it. And I can't empathize with people who are like ideas guys that just want to tell someone else what to do, what to do for them, you know? It's like that's the big problem for me, and that's where when people try and use the kind of disability accessibility argument for it, which I've seen a lot in the writing space as well. It's like, well, it's not actually helping you. It's not making the activity of doing the work more accessible. What it's doing is enabling the fantasy of being able to tell someone else what to do with no pushback and have them do it for you. That's not really anything to do with making the actual activity of doing the thing more accessible, because it's got nothing to do with it. Tourist Max. Yeah, and we need to start feeding mirrors into the raster to clear these. And that means we probably need more crystallizers around the raster to feed it, because we want to... we're going to need another raster over here, so we probably want to put a crystallizer somewhere around here that could feed both of them. I don't think we can... Can we build it there? Well, I mean, it says we can, but we can't. Okay. What's that one? That's a raster, which is basically useless at the moment, but I don't want to delete it, because last time I deleted a building, we got penance. What else can go into a landing pad? Okay, brick, canvas, tea, gathering. We want to feed that landing pad. So the weaver has a 50% chance of always producing a canvas. So we want one of these over here near this landing pad. Oh no, we've already got one. We've got one. We just need to finish feeding it. More kilns then, I guess. Can never have too many kilns. I think the way the resources are balanced is you kind of have to keep staggering kilns, crystallizers, and furnaces, and you'll notice they're all different sizes. So the furnaces are like really awkward to place. The crystallizers are quite awkward to place, and then the kilns are quite easy to place. But you need all of them, and you need to keep staggering them as you build out. What can daylight be done? What can we do with daylight? Daylight can feed into a cistern. We do an arena with daylight. Let's put another arena over here, maybe. Okay. One of the things you'll notice as well, when I go into the kind of planning mode and I'm thinking about where to build next, it just takes us away from the dice rolling a little bit. So it feels like there are these little kind of sub-games, like kind of modes you go into mentally as you do different things in the game, and that means you get a break from doing one thing. Which I think is a generally... but they're tied together, but I'm thinking about both things, but one of those things is like something I stop actually doing because I'm not rolling the dice for a few minutes. So it's a nice thing to think about in terms of any game. It's like, how do you give people a break from each activity to do another activity without it being a totally arbitrary, unrelated thing? part of what I don't like about fishing games. It always feels like a unrelated activity that has nothing to do with the rest of the game. Okay, we're getting... Yeah, so I think the blue is the event tracker. I don't quite understand, because they've made it look like a hexagon here, and this is a different shape, so I don't know if they're actually the same thing. Let's re-roll that. I don't know if we can do anything with it. I should probably check that out a little bit more. I'm wasting my re-rolls. Oh, I think I just worked out what that little symbol over there might be, but I need to test it. Okay, so we can take 12 instability dice, or we can spend 50 influence. I'm fine with spending the influence, because last time it was actually the population that was harder to gain than the influence. An unknown disease ended the life of a resident. Others were concerned about its spreading, and the call to cast where it struck into the mausoleum is growing. Okay, yeah, we're gonna spend the influence. That's a nice little... I haven't seen that spaceship before. I know I need to keep topping up my influence, because it's saved us from quite a few bad things now, and it's low. So we need to upgrade to the next level. We've already got enough residents, so we need to focus on growing our influence rather than growing our residents. But growing the residents also helps us to be able to build more stuff, so I am going to continue doing both to some degree. Let's re-roll that. We've used up all our re-rolls on the first day, but oh well. The music is striking a lovely balance of being like chilled out and a little bit alien, but not so much that it's disturbing, kind of thing. Okay, where do we get influence from? The bazaar and the arena. We need to finish building that arena, so let's pop those down. Can't believe I haven't finished that scrapyard yet either. And tea house. Okay, so let's... Reroll. Oh, I can't reroll that. Annoying. Now, if I put that there... Yeah, okay. That's what we mean by dice storage slots. You can hold a die. And at some point, if these guys are happy with me, I will get more of these, or I will lose some. Okay. Dais initiated new rituals, carving empty spaces for their god to inhabit beneath lodestars visible in dim sky. You can be a bit stronger. Okay. See what happens with those guys. They're a bit scary. Scary Space Templars. I want to keep on their good side. So that's held, so we get that symbol already. We're going to finish our scrapyard this time. Let's re-roll that one. We don't want the bad weather. We do want to finish that little kiln. So many houses. Now, I love placing little houses. There's something special about little houses that place themselves as well. Right, I keep not having anything to do with that silk when it rolls. So let's see what I can do over here. Maybe we need a bazaar over this side? Yeah, we do. We need a bazaar over here. That's what we've been missing. Yeah. Okay, so I don't really want that dice to be locked. Let's keep doing stuff over here. And we're trying to feed this ruster, so let's roll all of these because we want to get rid of this rust. I might need to build another ruster over here because I don't think it reaches that far, but I don't quite understand how the spatial part of the ruster works, really. Okay. It says range 15, but there's no visual indicator of how far that goes. The bass line in the music is currently doing Glory Box by Portishead. Gonna get demonetized. So tired of building on the stinking planet. Gotta get the rust away. The city has drawn the attention of a new off-world faction, Lantern. Lanterns are a small species of one and many organisms living in the cloud layers of Amber. Originating from small medusa living deep in the core layers, the larger pod species are now host to dozens of hundreds of human inhabitants. These former humans eventually become dependent on the host creature, but together have the ability to shape the planet and moon system to a large degree. Their favor gives one reroll on every event. Their penalty adds one instability die on every event. That one was a little bit more Richard E. Grant then. I don't like him. I don't like all of that sound about, all of that noise about former humans becoming dependent on the host creature. It's disturbing. Ruster? New Rustbuster over here? Yeah, that's where we need that. And then can we do a new crystallizer over here so it's going to be easy to build? No, we can't reach that, but we can put in, hang on. What does it need? Metal. Oh, so that needs a what's it called? It needs a furnace. Furnace. I have been burnt in the furnace. Buildings constructed within 5 distance get further resident range. So we want to start growing the city from here in terms of population now, because the scrapyard makes our residential buildings stronger. See in there. Keep our influence up. 50 seems like the edge of the safe level for influence in terms of being able to stop really bad stuff happening, but I expect there'll be some much worse stuff. We're gonna end the turn. Robin and Kuro, how are you getting on with the jam? What have you been doing? Any big sticking points? I'm starting to think that letting new patches of flood and rust form is better than letting it spread, because when it spreads, the ones that are already close to you are going to get closer. I don't know. Get that built quickly. Right, we've got nothing happening over here. I should probably do something about that. Okay, I'm starting to get a better sense of how all of these buildings fit together generally, so I can plan a bit more now. He says placing a crystallizer down with no kiln nearby to build it from. I don't have any way to build gatherings yet. I think maybe that's a... Weaver over here somewhere would be good. Another tea house soon as well. I'm so tired of drinking in this frickin' tea house. Hey, don't hate on Pong with extra steps. That's a video game right there. Let's re-roll that one because we want a chance to make progress on this building. And again. Another one. I seem to have got into a weird blocked position because I've got nowhere to put this dice from this one. And I put it in here and now I can't use it. So it's just stuck until I finish building that and I can sell my silk at the bazaar. So I had a play, speaking of Pong with extra steps, I had a play the other night. And I played it on the iPhone, which was a bad idea. Both because I hate playing action games on a touchscreen and because it was oriented to be landscape when I felt it should have been vertical. But I played Ball Times Pit for the first time. And I really want to give that some of my time properly at some point. It's just moved up on my backlog. I won't be playing it on that device, but I do want to give it a proper play. Because you know what? Under all the intellectual bravado, deep down, I'm just an ordinary man who likes to bounce a ball off of things and for it to explode and for there to be elemental damage and to get points and to feel smart when I bounce something in a particular way, but also not have to think too hard about it and be able to switch off for a little bit. And Ball Times Pit, pretty good at delivering on all of those things. So when you say Pong with extra steps, I think, well, I mean, Ball Times Pit is Breakout with extra steps and is great. Okay, we need to make a, what's it called, a cistern over here. Because it's getting really icky. The villagers over here are like, have you seen this water? Have you seen this Dark Souls ass water over here? Miyazaki is rolling around in it, going, I love to die in the swamp. What are you talking about? This is my favourite. You just don't appreciate a good swamp. Maybe it's time to start some landing pads further out as well. You know what? When half of my... not to get political, but when half of my interactions on the Zuckerberg platform currently are berating people that are incredibly worried about an incredibly small amount of people coming to the country on small boats, it feels quite nice to be just building landing pads and going, hey guys, come on down, we've got nice tea. It may or may not be made out of dodgy crushed up crystals. We're making ink. If you want to, you can come and work at the kiln. So I find it quite cathartic that I don't think cozy is the... this game feels cozy. I don't think in terms of marketing niche it's a cozy game, because it's very rare to see a game that would be called that has this kind of hard sci-fi theming. but there's something very sort of hopeful and utopian about the game, in that like the only real threat is nature, and then maybe these other factions, and mechanically what happens if you annoy the factions is not a massive deal from what I can see. I mean, it feels like it's going to shape your play a little bit, but what we're definitely not doing here is we're not doing Frostpunk. We're not doing like, did you know there's no such thing as a good leader that isn't also a horrible person? You know, that sort of slight Disco Elysium nihilism about the spoiler alert for Disco Elysium, about the eventually what happens if you follow the socialism route all the way through the Disco Elysium stuff when you meet the students and stuff. I found that incredibly bleak. I find it very interesting that people think that is a kind of unilaterally unproblematically leftist game based on what happens in that storyline and how it concludes. I think it's quite a nihilistic game. It feels like sort of South Park nihilism in places. It feels like kind of dirtbag left horseshoe theory kind of thinking about things. You know what, Robin? I think making a small game for a game jam and then working out how it might be a roguelike afterwards would be a way better way of making a roguelike than most people's process for making a roguelike, which is they just immediately decide that that's the structure of their game before they've made anything. If you make something fun and small first, you can go, oh yeah, I could see how what in this I could randomize, I could see how I could do builds and stuff. But people just decide to make a massive ass game before they've got that fun bit. The city has drawn the attention of a new off-world faction, the Frame. Frame are a trading monopoly controlling the majority of faster-than-light travel. Through the use of draft ships, which are effectively titanic computers with engines and cargo holds attached, the folds of space and time can be manipulated to travel nearly instantly between the stars. Their favor adds 3 rolls every cycle. Their penalty removes 3 re-rolls every cycle, and they're the reason why GPUs are so expensive in this universe. Okay. Yeah, Pepper, I think that's the way that I feel about it. I don't think it's even necessarily a criticism of the game. I just, you know, there's a type of person, usually a bit younger, who wants a media text to have like one specific thing to say. And they're like, no, it doesn't mean that, it means this. And, you know, it's what in media and literary studies we call heteroglossia, when a piece of media speaks with more than one voice. And I think there are parts of Disco Elysium that are very hopeful, and there are parts that are very sort of disillusioned. And how you interpret those depends on what content you get in the game, and like how you're playing it. But I mean, there's you know, the game is very like willing to tell you you're being a jerk if you do any of the like fascist stuff as well. So it does take a stance on certain things. But it also, if you decide you're going to be like the art cop or whatever the different sort of more silly bohemian routes are, the game also mocks you for that. And it's like, yeah, you can't actually be a communist cop. Sorry, that's not a thing. Which is fair enough, I guess. I mean, I don't disagree. Right, we'll get rid of that rust up there. we're going to get into the any authoritarian system that calls itself communist or socialist is an accurate representation of the only way that communism and socialism can be? Are we going to get into that one now? I'm so bored. Oh, teenage grammar school debate club is calling. It'd be great if ideology just worked, wouldn't it? And people could be like, this is how I want the world to be, and then enact it, and with no friction in reality. A Dias crystal virus spread through the networks of the city. Clefts, off-axis rotations, and dislocations in the crystals caused untold problems. Spend influence to choose one outcome or roll dice. Okay, so we can... we've got a reroll on this. I've been ignoring this panel so far when this has come up. We can force them to pay restitution, which, to be fair, doesn't cost that much. I'm going to do that. Screw you guys. They've still got a neutral disposition, so... Applicable hope. That's a great concept. Differentiator. Are you saying that I shouldn't disengage entirely from politics and society just because the sun is going to explode one day? Because I was considering becoming heat death of the universe black-pilled. That was my next sort of ideology I was thinking about, was just thinking, you know, well, at some point the entire universe will sort of cease to be inhabitable by anything we currently recognize as life. So what's the point in trying to improve anything? That's what I was going to go for. Sort of like, it's a bit sort of goth, but sci-fi. It's the vibe. The spherical cow. We're gonna do a big upgrade. It's time. We're gonna become Ascendant. We're gonna be able to make armorers, the chapelle, the distillery, the fort. It's a floating fort. An observatory and a habitat. I love these designs. Look how different they all are. No, accelerationism isn't enough, you know. Accelerationism is still occurring within the sort of normal dialectics of sort of 20th century politics. We want transhuman accelerationism, you know. I want to become a particle that gets beamed across the universe, and I'm taking you all with me. I mean, one thing is, the bigger your city gets, the sort of broader the edges are, and that means when you're only rolling 2 weather die, the amount of the edge of your city that's affected by the weather each time is kind of shrinking. So unless you get these big catastrophes that add loads of die, the friction of the environment doesn't keep up. Yeah, if Patreon ever hits, well, I'm gonna decide what number, but I'm gonna get turned into a pure beam and shot at the moon, I think, and then I haven't really worked out the next stage, but if anyone wants to suggest what I'm gonna do when I irradiate the moon. Habitat removes grass terrain tiles. Okay, so grass is basically another environmental threat. That creates more bad weather as we get out and we touch it. So habitats we don't need until we're building near these. We've got the observatory, which makes starlight and daylight. We've got the distillery, which creates quiver, dye, wax, and salt. So we need to make sure we put that in the right place because it's going to create really high value resources, and we need to make sure that they are in a location where we can do stuff with them. The fort takes a lot of the higher tier resources and turns them into influence. The armorer is going to give us silk, scrap, metal, and bearings. And the chapel gives us music and rituals and crystals. I've always wanted to become a celestial body that eats other celestial bodies. If you've ever seen the Transformers, the 80s Transformers anime, it has Orson Welles in it as Unicron, who is a giant planet robot that eats other planets, and it is so terrifying. Like, you just see human spaceships getting eaten by this big evil planet voiced by Orson Welles. It's like, yeah, Michael Bay wouldn't do that. Coward. What does the fort do? Oh, the fort is another trade thing. So the fort can take in things from like this silk, quiver. So that makes silk. That makes silk. So I think we should put a fort over here somewhere where those things can reach it. Let's put it over here. And what else can feed into the fort? A quiver, which comes from the distillery. Right, I can't see if that can reach, so we'll build that later on. So just in case anyone in the chat doesn't understand what Ultima Online is, because, you know, it's not a very well-known game anymore. Ultima Online is basically like RuneScape, but for really old people. Okay, we can put quivers into the arena. Is quiver like the type of drink or something? Can't reach. Okay, I think we need to just expand out here with the landing bay, so I'll keep doing that. Tea house is our best chance at that. Maybe we need to build more tea houses. Because the tea houses have been very, very helpful for actually expanding our population. Getting more people on. So let's get a few more of those if we can. Anywhere? Anywhere for a tea house? Please? Please? For anyone new, the Ultima Online is like RuneScape for really old people, is a running bit. And I will just say it forever. I'm not one for catchphrases, but an obscure bit that people get mildly annoyed at each time, that's great. It's actually the only MMO that I ever really played, because my computer could run it. My computer couldn't run World of Warcraft. I can't believe they called them Mongbats. Terrible. Several lantern symbiotes perished after coming into contact with materials produced from a kiln. Salt levers rendered its output toxic to the symbiote membranes. Okay, we have to... So we've got these aliens that are being hurt by salt. They demand the kiln be dismantled. So why does it say minus influence there and then it has a cost there? I'm just going to roll the die. See what happens. I'll re-roll it. That's the one I don't want. Yeah, that's fine. Hey, I'm 40 this year. If I wasn't, I wouldn't know what Ultima Online was. I'd just be like, oh, what's that? Is that like Habbo Hotel or something? Oh yeah, I wouldn't say it failed. I think it just had its time. I think they all have their time, don't they? Oh, something's going on. I'm getting a weird mouse control thing. There we go. Landing pad. Right. Ah, we can use ink. Oh, it's silk. We can use silk to build the fort for some reason. I'm fine with that. Sometimes the tooltips are really getting in the way of the lines I need to see. And it makes me sad. The arena needs more sunlight. Boo. Right, we do need a cistern over here. I feel like I've already had that thought and not built it, so we need to relearn why I can't build a cistern over here. It's because everyone is busy working on other things. Who do they think they are? Right, folks, I'm going to take a very quick break to make myself a new coffee. I will be back in under 10 minutes, but slightly longer than 5. Coffee acquired. Welcome back. We're playing Command and Conquer Tiberium Sun. Slow edition. Peaceful mode. Oh, we're starting to get grass growth, potentially. I think. Oh no, the 6th moon of Amber. Does that mean that this is effectively like the level we're on? So maybe there are other levels. Yeah, I like Zed. I was talking to someone about that game the other day. Or Z. However you want to call it. So, music and ritual. What can we do with music and ritual? We can't sell it. Still don't have anything that creates gathering. There are certain sort of like game design things where there are like particular game design problems, I guess, that I'm always interested to see how people tackle them, but I often think that they can't be tackled. I guess that's what people mean when they say a cursed design problem. So one of them for me is like the console RTS. Like, how do you make an RTS that is easy enough to control on a console? Halo Wars was a very valiant attempt. It's a game that I respect a lot. If you were like, hey, do you want to play Halo Wars right now? I'd probably be like, no. No, I don't. Do you want to play Z right now? Probably not. I love the idea of it, and I want to continue to see people trying it out. One of the reasons I like Bad North so much. And I think it's one of the reasons why tower defense games did so well, because they sort of scratched the itch that people want from RTS games. But the reality of playing RTS games is like, okay, if you're not very good at them and you're a sort of casual mid-core player of them, then you only actually want to play the you don't want to play them as an esport or against other people. You just want to play the campaign. So what you really need is a game that's built around being a single-player campaign game, and not a game where the campaign is just there to teach you how to play the multiplayer variant of it. And there's quite a lot of design space there, I think, for like single-player strategy games, whether it's a real-time RTS thing or a 4X. Those types of games, but designed exclusively as a sort of asymmetrical single-player game, you know? I mean, that's part of how something like Slay the Spire works, is the design of Slay the Spire isn't trying to replicate two people with decks of cards playing a duel against each other, right? And that means that they can do kind of what they want to make the single player game work, because they're not trying to make a single player game that is basically a multiplayer game with bots. And, you know, last week when we were talking about platformers and I got Chris C's genre stats up from a few years ago, and I was saying, look, the reason why there are so few 4X games and they do so well is because 4X games are only made by professional studios. It's very rare to find a small indie 4X, and that's because 4X games, kind of by nature of what they are not single player. And when you play them single player, you are playing a simulated version of a multiplayer game. I think Folk Emerging, by one of our patrons that featured on the playtesting video a little while ago, is a really, really good example of how to implement a 4X game in a single player mode. But even in that, the kind of computer characters are sort of mimicking what you as a player can do quite a bit. Against the Storm. I haven't, no. I'm gonna quickly look it up. Ooh. That's some Warcraft 3 looking stuff if I ever saw it. That's very visually appealing to me. It's got that, you know, you kind of, when you look at a complex game, you look at the interface and you're like, how much stuff is there here? And it feels like just the right level of hurting my brain to look at for me to know it might have the source. Okay, an old lantern habitat among the first to settle the cloud layers of Amber was depressurized and discarded. The feelings of nostalgia and attachment overwhelm the eldest pods and symbiotes. Was it destroyed? The habitat was kept as an artifact. We're just going to lose a reroll, that's fine. A roguelike city builder all about recreating the first hour of a city builder over and over. That's a great idea. Because I think that's a really good sort of design problem to try and work around, is the fact that, you know, since I was a kid, I always had that problem with like SimCity and stuff. It's just you kind of reach a point where, you know, they added end game stuff into to try and resolve this, but it always felt a little bit tagged on. Just like, what do I do now? You know? You can either make it a survival game where your city is being threatened by something, which is too much like, you know, building a sandcastle with the knowledge that someone's going to try and kick it down. It's got to the point where WASDing around the map is going to be easier than scrolling now. I don't think that does it. That's not near enough. It says range 15. Maybe that can reach 1, 2, 3, 4. I need to be able to see the range on the map for some of these things. It's a bit annoying that I can't. But I'll put the resources in them anyway. Okay. Time to start thinking about what to build next. Balancing out here nicely. Right, we're going to need to deal with the grass over here. Let the weather do its thing. What's this? What's that? Fog move, fog grow. We'll have none of that. Or perhaps some of it. What does the fog do? Disables nearby residents and buildings. Okay. So it doesn't get rid of anything. But you still don't want it around. So you can see these buildings are darkened because they're in the fog. They are sickened. How do we get rid of it? We don't have the thing to get rid of it yet. We've got a habitat to deal with grass, and there is some grass over here, so we should build a habitat. But the fog is too strong. All our builders are getting high on the fog. That's some sort of Dishonored stuff if I ever saw it. Okay. Interesting. So we're just going to have to leave that for now. We've got the fog district. It's just part of the town now. Keep growing out from this landing pad. No open space in range. Oh, we're starting to max out. Starting to max out some of the old landing pads now. They're just like, nope. Sorry. Not a bad thing though. What it does mean is if I could destroy them, then I could make stuff that's good for the bazaar instead. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Yeah. Or maybe I build another bazaar because I need to just keep pumping up these stats now. Will it fit? Will it fit? Yeah. Oh, we've worked out the strat. The strat is to get rid of your landing pads and replace them with some sort of market. That's the sacrifice. Because otherwise, all of the resources you were using to grow your population don't have anywhere to go now. Furnace is destroyed. Oof. Okay, maybe that's alright. Maybe we weren't getting much use out of that anymore anyway. So let's think of something else we can put there. And that's not going to do any good there. A chapel makes ritual and music, but I don't have anything to use ritual and music in, I don't think. That can use glow. So maybe an observatory. Observatory and a fort. Okay. Okay. We'll put a fort there. And an observatory. Huh. Interesting. Okay. We want to build these, so let's take all the stuff that we can that's going to feed into them properly. And we're going to try and avoid growing our population for a bit now. Because I want to keep these little spaces on the map to put new buildings into. So I don't want the houses to fill them in. Again, new stuff to think about that just comes out of like changes in the game situation without actually adding any mechanics. It's great. It's just, oh, this thing can't do its job anymore because it's run out of space, so now you've got an opportunity to do something else with that. Or the other one was this place gets destroyed by a random event. What are you going to put there? Are you going to fill it back in with houses? Maybe not the best use of the space. That's neat. Build that cistern. Yeah. Get rid of this stinky little lake down here. Oh. I don't want to roll all of these bad dice. Well. Oh my goodness. They're actually making holes in the ground. I mean, if anyone thought there wasn't enough peril in this game, your house could just fall into a 1,000-foot peat in the ground. That's no good. Build our next landing pads out. Don't have to actually staff them yet. Just get them ready to go. That's too close to that one. How about over here? Okay. Ding that. Ding that. And try and finish building these two. What's it that builds bearings? The armorer? Yeah, the armorer. I hate it when my house falls down a big hole. Dang. There we go. Get rid of some of these. I mean, you've got to have a subterranean underclass of mole people, haven't you? You just got to do it for the trope sometimes. Word reached the City of Dice sect that encouraged a mutiny on a draft ship in deep space. The ship appeared totally lost on a vector headed to a distant galaxy. We can roll for a random outcome. That's all I can do. So we're going to do it. Cool. We lose all our influence. Time to get making some tea, boys. It's tea time. Know where to use that yet? God, what am I going to do with all this starlight? What do we need to do to get past this ascendant level? That's my... Okay. Clockworks, Fogbreaker... Library, Gardens, Lighthouse, Shipyard. Influential city. Threads stretch across the stars, vibrating with energy. A thin strand anchored firmly at the city. Gain 6 new buildings, gain 1 dice storage slot. Oh, we've got 2 dice storage slots. That's nice. Can I put the bad dice in them? No. Right, let's get this bazaar built as well, because not having this here is losing us a lot of influence income. I mean, if the music wasn't so chill, it would be a bad game. I think that's what I think about that. Because games which require you to do a lot of deep thinking should usually have chilled out music. Puzzle games and strategy games should never have like driving, drum heavy music. It's just a basic music psychology thing of what sort of mode the music puts your brain in. I would strongly recommend learning about something called polyvagal theory, which is to do with how your central nervous system switches into different sort of modes based on what you need to, or what your brain thinks you need to do in a given situation. And there's a mode that humans have for thinking deeply and socializing, which is a different mode for sort of fight or flight type stuff. And when you're in fight or flight mode, your perception of things and your ability to focus on different things is totally changed. And even like your hearing range changes, because we're tuned to hear consonants when we're listening for people speaking. And yeah, look up polyvagal theory. There's a reason why even like a combat focused strategy game that maybe even turn-based will tend to not have like really thumping heavy music or drums, even if it's like got a battle focus. And if it does, it will be this kind of building game show music that doesn't really go anywhere. Like dum 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 dum, rather than there's all this kind of music psychology that goes into choosing music for games. And anytime you're expecting people to think very deeply about or think through a problem, it's not helpful to put very driving music. You could make this game with sort of spooky, slightly more tense music and it would still work. But it would still have to be quite laid back because of what the game requires you to do. Polybagel theory. Yep. Is someone that is has multiple sexual romantic relationships with different types of round, savoury baked goods. No, it's polyvagal with a V. It's named after the polyvagus nerve or system. I don't know. I'm not a neuroscientist. I just find it interesting. I went to a sort of counselor for burnout once, and they got me into learning about that. They were like, you need to understand this because this is why you cannot recover if you stay in a stressful situation and don't get out of it. I was like, okay. So what you're telling me is I should poop on my boss's desk. If I get in trouble, you'll cover for me because you told me to do it. Yeah, I mean, it's all neurology stuff. A resident was analysing the mausoleum, digging within the city to reach a particularly unique part of the crystalline structure. They ignored a crucial cleft in the structure. We can have instability dice, or we can have not so many instability dice. We're going to roll the dice, and we're going to hope we get a 2. 2, please. 2, please. Don't have any rerolls. I feel like burnout has become one of those terms that we just use for like, I'm tired because I worked too hard, which I don't think is what it really means, but I don't, also people just use it quite interchangeably with just like, you know, I've done too much work. And I think there's more to it than that, but I'm not an expert either. I know for me, when I've experienced stuff I would describe as burnout, it's less just like I've worked really hard, and it's more, it tends to be like a kind of moral injury element where it's like, you know, I'm being made to do things I don't agree with kind of thing. Which just seems to be a pattern. Any sort of like higher paying, more senior job anywhere seems to involve some degree of like having to adjust to being a bad person. They're just sort of not willing to do. And then there's that trade-off of it's like, I want you want me to be a bad person and make decisions that I know are harmful to people, you know. And this could, out of all of the things in my career, this could apply to working in a game studio, it could apply to working in a university. Take your pick. But the more senior you get, the more there are going to be people that have like goals which don't align with making, you know, lower downs happy, or making users of your app happy, or whatever. And then the more you get up into middle, the more you're encouraged to just go along with what the people above you want, but to try and spin it so that the people below you should like it in some way. And I'm not very good at that, and that's one of my big autistic traits, is I am not very good at lying. And I know that sounds like a humble brag. I know that's a bit of a kind of Aspie supremacy thing, to be, oh, we're just like really honest, we can't help it. But I think I'm very, very bad at being kind of traditionally tactful, because often that just involves not talking about certain things, and I really struggle to do that. So yeah, for me, burnout, everything I've experienced in my career as burnout has always felt just, it's not just like, oh, I had to work really hard and now I'm tired, which I've had periods like that were stressful, but often it was working on something I cared about and it felt good to do. Whereas I'm working on something really hard and I'm tired, and also I don't believe in it and I think it should stop. You know, that sort of thing is like, that's the stuff that makes you go cuckoo. And then you become a content creator. I think most people, when they make games or they start content creation or they start trying to do some sort of media on their own, the dream is to be your own boss. And that's part of it for me, but I feel like that's the secondary part. The primary part is not having to be anyone else's boss. So I was just waffling, seeing what the chat says. I want some mud dice. Right, yeah, Mega Turtles, I get that as well. Yeah, I find it a lot easier to get on board with, like, someone doing something bad if they don't try and spin it as, like, some big win for humanity, you know? So that needs metal, brick and crystal. I don't have anything nearby to build that, so I'm going to start building some resources for that. That needs bricks and dust, so we need to build that first. Okay. Can we get our grass habitat over here yet? No, still got too many sleepy houses from the sleepy fog. Might still be good to put one of them down for later. Another cistern to clear some water. And that means we need a kiln nearby to supply it with salt, I think. Kiln there. Just gonna try and keep building out in different directions. Yeah, Ponius, I mean, I do agree with that. It just doesn't feel like something I ever had any much control over, you know? A lot of startup environments are so sort of claustrophobic that people don't talk about what they're experiencing, and then you don't find out that someone else was having just as bad a time as you until, like, you're leaving or whatever. I had that experience once. Like, such a small place where managing director sort of had everything in an iron fist, and most of the people that worked there had worked there longer than me, so I just thought, oh, everyone's his friends, so, you know, if I'm getting bullied or whatever, that's just something that's only happening to me. And then when I was preparing to leave, some of the people that have been there for a very long time told me that they, you know, were having and had had a similar experience, and it was just like no one talked about it while they were trying to get on with work because it made it harder, I guess. Yeah, that's an interesting theory. I think it's also because we don't acknowledge the just responding to what Turtle was saying. I think it's also because we don't receive the sort of social reward for towing the line. It doesn't really register. So that's something I feel. Like, I've always struggled with any sort of tribalism, like whether it's nationalism or just like any situation where it's like, well, this person is your friend or your family, so you have to be on their side in this situation, even if they did something really bad. Like, I've never gotten on with that well, and that's a very neurotypical thing, and certain kind of cultures or subcultures have more of it than others, I guess. It's a very sort of like working class British thing to be like. I mean, I say that, that's because that's what most of my experience in life is from, but there's very much a sense of, like, we look after our own, and, which is why all the reform voters do my head in, because they pretend to, like, care about, oh, you know, people coming in from outside are dangerous and stuff, and it's like, well, you know, yeah, I was rereading the other day the stats about how in the UK, when England lose a football match, the domestic violence reports go up by like 38% or something, and it's like, well, that's English people, that's white English people. So I don't trust that group of people to then be the police for who is the most dangerous people coming into the country, you know. I think it might be a they doth protest too much type thing. Yeah, we were talking about autism, but I think this sort of stuff is transferable. I think we're going to find a better way of talking about it one day that's not just like, this person has this thing, and this means they have all of these exact traits. Because I don't think that's how it really works. Yeah, we got the Greens locally to me. We had a by-election ahead of the main election because our reform councillor who was in went to prison for being an abuser. Can I still put that there? Getting hard to keep the influence score up now. I need to start using these dice saving slots when I generate things I can't use. I keep forgetting it exists. Pepper is like, the film Notting Hill is a documentary. I keep getting into some like weird locked scrolling mode where I'm trying to move the die and the camera is following me when it shouldn't be following anymore. I think there's a survivorship bias with certain types of neurodivergences getting into particular fields or jobs because of what the practice entails in the first place. And I think there's a similar thing. Like there's I would say generally speaking, there's a lot of autistic and ADHD people in either tech or art, but tech skews a little bit more towards autism and ADHD and art skews a little bit more towards ADHD, but there's a bit of both either way. And I think part of it comes down to people develop a practice at doing something because it's soothing, right? So if you find being around people tiring, for example, you're going to seek out activities where you get to just be on your own and focus deeply on something. That's an example. And then you might have like stims that come out through drawing and stuff like that. So I think most of the time when you meet an artist, whether it's a visual artist or a musician or whatever, the thing that you recognize as their style of how they draw or how they whatever, it's like a thing that they do that they found soothing enough to do it for 10,000 hours to get good at it, you know? And I know that's a little bit reductive, but I meet so many musicians as well who are neurodivergent in some way. And I think it just comes down to like most... If a lot of neurotypical people just do not practice anything. You know, they're not like... They're like, unless someone is giving me a certificate for something, I will not just practice something for fun. And a lot of neurodivergent people, it's like, no, I must do this activity. This is like my super advanced coding is, or drawing is my super advanced 4-dimensional fidget spinner that I use to get through the week. And that's what, if you go back to where the term neurodiversity came from, the idea of neurodiversity is basically that as a species trait, it is good for humans to have a diverse range of brains within a particular group, because that's how we survive and adapt. So you have people that think differently, and that leads to the group being more flexible and being adaptable. And that's what neurodiversity theory is rooted in. And even with things like dyslexia or color blindness, you can start to pick out like, well, maybe this mutation that led to people having this different thing about their brains or their sense organs or whatever was actually beneficial in a group of people. So for example, the one with color blindness is that they've done tests with people with red-green color blindness, and they're better at seeing camouflaged animals. So if you had a group of 12 hunters, statistically likely that 1 or 2 of them won't be able to see color, but they'll be better at seeing animals. Now the other people in the group will have to tell them, hey Brian, stop eating the red berries, you know? But it's the Mass Effect Reavers theory of like why humans are good. And the only reason it's really been problematized in the last sort of 100 years or so is that we're still working on a Victorian model of education where it's like, we must put everyone together based on what year they were born in and make them all do the same things for the first sort of 12 years of their life. And only after that point can they start to specialize and have a experience of education and growing up that's based on who they appear to be rather than what we've decided everyone needs to do. And it's a difficult problem because there's pros and cons to the sort of liberal arts education thing where you make everyone do a bit of every kind of learning, and I totally am in favor of that to some degree, but yeah, the way that we do education and everything sets a lot of people up to just have a bad experience of learning and then carry that dislike through the rest of their lives. And it's why so many of us who are techies or artsy people learnt what we did as a hobby. And that's part of why I'm so dismissive of when people are like, should I get started making things? It's like, well, if you really want to make things, you just start, you know. And I know that sounds really flippant, but I don't know people that have long careers doing techie or arty things who weren't just driven enough to just start because they felt like it. And people that dilly-dally about like, oh, well, is there any point? Can I have a career in it? It's like, well, if that's your concern, then you're probably not cut out for it anyway. You know? But can you imagine if you didn't pick up a hobby like, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons or gardening or something because you didn't think that one day you would be able to make a full-time living out of it? It's like bizarre. Just looking back. Yeah, Robin, I got the ADHD assessment a couple of years ago. I've got the mixed type, which is partly hyperactive and partly inattentive. It was a more helpful diagnosis than the autism one, because the autism one is like, well, now you've got a certificate and you can tell people you've got this condition, and they won't listen, and they won't change anything about how they operate based on your condition, regardless of what you tell them. So you go through this thing when you get a late life diagnosis, you go through this thing of initially you sort of like super identify with the label and it's like everything you are because you've been thinking a lot about it, and then at some point it's like, well, how is this going to actually affect my life? How am I going to get help with it? You know, I've fallen out with like friends, previous relationships and stuff where they've just been like, I have this diagnosis and it's the reason why I can't get better at anything in my life, and I can't do better at anything. And it's like, that's kind of not how I see these things. It's like you need to be able to do something with it actionable, and the world around you isn't usually going to bend, or if it does it in this very generic way that doesn't actually suit people and doesn't understand the diversity of people even within one diagnosis. So the autism diagnosis wasn't super helpful for me. What I found I ended up having to do was tell people one problem at a time, the things I had problems with, and the adaptation I would like them to make if they could. You know, so with communication stuff, it would be like, hey, I care how you're feeling. So if I do anything that upsets you, or I say something that upsets you, I might not realize. So I need you to tell me, because I care how you feel and I care what you think of me. And because I care about our friendship or relationship, I need you to talk to me about those things, because I'm not very good at telling. Those kind of conversations you end up having to have, because just telling people I'm autistic and that means I'm not good at X, or I'm ADHD and that means I'm not good at X, doesn't tend to get people to actually accommodate the issues that you have, in comparison to actually saying, hey, you know, this would help us both if you could do this, otherwise I don't know the problem exists, you know. And one of the things I've noticed is, like, I've had friends that have the ADHD diagnosis and not the autism diagnosis, and they end up presenting quite similarly anyway, because a lot of the social issues that you're supposed to have as part of autism, you get similar things in ADHD just because the person isn't paying attention. You know? So I can't read social cues. It's like, well, this person can read social cues, but they're thinking about something else. So they're not cognizant of the social cue happening, even though they could read it if they were paying attention. And that's why you often get, I think that's what a lot of sort of ADHD kind of combined experiences like. But also sometimes you get people that are so inattentive that it ends up presenting as autism, even if they're ADHD. Obviously, not super expert on this. Probably more of an expert than a lot of people because I've lived it, and I've also taught a lot of SEN students and done a lot of kind of the reading around that, but it's not like my quote-unquote field. But I do think a lot about these things. JBXRM. Interestingly, that same thing you struggle with socially might contribute to why your less filtered candidate feedback is so valuable to people. Yes, exactly. It's exactly. That's. I mean, people need genuine feedback, and the problem with doing very polite, tactful feedback is, you know, I've talked about it before as the turd sandwich. Like you're always told. Or a lot of the time when you do teacher training, you're told, you know, when you give criticism, sandwich it in between 2 bits of praise. And what you find is if you make that disproportional, then they won't listen to the criticism and they'll just walk away with the praise and they go, oh, I did fine. And it's like, no, you did terribly. You got like 40% on an essay. Like, I said one nice thing about what you did. So if someone's doing really badly, like they're underperforming, they're getting 30%, they're getting 40%. It's not, you know, maybe you compliment them on putting a tiny bit of effort in, but you shouldn't go out of your way to be polite, because they need to know how severe the problem is. I'm just bouncing back into the chat. Yeah, Robin, that sounds like a familiar experience. See you later, Ponius. The impulsivity is the one that I've struggled with as well, what you were just talking about. Spending money. Getting into addictive things. And then convincing myself I'm not an addict because I jump between different addictive things for a few weeks. And then hyperfixate on different things that are all kind of destructive or addictive. I've had that experience quite a bit, so I have to be very careful with alcohol, anything sort of gambling-ish. KP, is that something you have written on a cue card? I like to think there's one of those binders with all the cue cards on. It's like, right, where's the secret trigger code to get the neurotypical person to communicate properly? See you later, Pepper. Right, I'm going to do a little bit of urban planning now because we're not making much progress very quickly. And I need to stop soon because I've got some paperwork to do today. But I will save this and we'll probably stream it again next week because this has been a good time. This is a good game to do this with. Although, since we've been talking about neurodiversity for 20 minutes or something, I've completely stalled on making my city better. I think what I need to do is put... It's really interesting dynamic, because it's like I need to grow the city out, but the complexity of the amount of buildings that you need to clear this stuff starts to really ramp up, because it's like, oh, now I need a habitat to clear the grass, and something to clear the water, and something to clear the fog. So it's like you start packing together these other buildings that you need to do that stuff, and then you're going to have less space to do the other things. It's good. It's a tasty set of problems. I really like it. It's kind of lived up to what I wanted it to be when I saw it, I think. CSV is the correct communication style. Yes, not JSON. Not me breaking the JSON with my curly quotation marks. System here somewhere. Can't do that yet because too much stuff. Ruster. Okay, let's just do a couple of rounds of as much growth as we can, I guess. I really like how much the dice puzzle changes each turn. Really nice. The uncontrollable hyperfocus. Not me restringing guitars at 10:30 last night. We need a landing pad over here, I think. That's what we need next. This is all a bit janky over here. Mirror, root, glow. Where do roots come from? Tea houses. Yeah, I need to stop. Because before I pick the kids up from school, I need to start working on a spec doc. I am helping a team out with a game that I'm not going to describe, but it's been through the first bit of kind of prototyping of the main action bit, and now we're moving into like level structure. It's all very quick and dirty, and my involvement is just having a couple of phone calls each month and occasionally writing a document for the sort of creative lead to sign off and then the programmer to work to in terms of defining what we're testing with each stage. So I need to go and do that, or at least start on it. I think when I come back to this, I might do another session on it next week, because I think just having a game that I play once a week on stream for like a month or something and then switching to another one and having a bit of a longer engagement with the game is quite nice. And yeah, there's those of you who are kind of happy to just hang out during something like this, which is cool. I'm always happy to have a group therapy session. mean, that's what this kind of thing is for, isn't it? Okay, so if I were to save some of these things, am I going to end up in that state I got in before where I lock them in and then I can't spend them because of the distances and they just end up clogging those spaces up forever? I don't know how many more stages of level up we have. This is going to end up filling the whole screen though. We're rolling the die. The pods readjusted and the clouds settled. The confusion persisted or the sun mirror was adjusted. They lose strength. Okay, so there's quite a lot of ways of dealing with these events as well. It's like you can either put loads of money into loads of resources into having high influence so you can choose the outcome. You can save dice rerolls so that you can affect the outcome but not directly choose it. It's just really nice how many different ways there are of mitigating the randomness and kind of using stuff from you know, multiple resources to do similar jobs. Just makes me want to make my own digital Euro game now, which is not a good idea, and I shouldn't do it. We love a funky building. Try and clear some of this rust. Have we got any cisterns going? No. Still can't use starlight. All my kilns are out of range. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do with these... Where is that coming from? Okay, that's coming from over there. So what I need to do is find something that uses scrap and build it near there. A crystallizer over here is probably going to be alright for that. Let's just put one there. And something that uses earth over here as well. Which would be maybe a bazaar, although we got one right there. A weaver. We've got a few of those over there as well. A distillery uses earth. Maybe we need a distillery over here. Right next to that big pit. Are you going for a drink at the booze hole tonight? Sure am. And now we can put that there. And that there. Yeah, it's a weird situation where you've locked the dice in, and it's like, well, I just can't build anything with those from where those buildings are, so you have to deliberately build some stuff that uses them. The only way to finish that is to have silk come out of these as well, which has just not been happening. Gna. I made a Wizard University simulator Euro game and took it to UK Games Expo. Or took the prototype of it. Pretty good. It's just like it was a weird complexity level where it was very hard to do short playtests with people. So it was kind of, it was like I kind of knew all of it was working, but it was hard to tell if it was enjoyable for people. That was the biggest problem. Because when you're making a game where it's like you need to think really hard, it's very hard to judge that sort of stuff. It's like, are people thinking hard in a fun way? I've still never played Galaxy Trucker. I know what it is. It sounds wonderfully cursed. It's a Vlada Churchill game, isn't it? Who is one of those interesting people that is like, I will never make the same type of game twice. Which isn't usually how most people work. Okay, that's my last turn. I'm saving it there. So that's my city. Yeah, that's it. I don't think there's like a load of stuff to unlock. I think it's literally just you build a city for as long as you can. I guess the factions that show up with the events are going to be different each time, and that will change some things. But to be honest, I've not let any of them get powerful or friendly enough where it's actually changing my game mechanics or changing the amount of rerolls or anything like that I get. I feel like the weight of those events coming up, it's like it disrupts the dice game so much that I'm often just like, quickly skim it and pick something. But I really like this. It's quite inspiring. I was expecting it to be a bigger game, and I don't mean that in a kind of disappointed way. I'm quite happy with what it is. Ryan Bucklew of Caves of Cud on the special thanks. So yeah, you've got the game design and the programming being done by the same person, and then you've got a team of art, music, writing people. Great. Thank you for joining me for that. Go and check it out. We've met the lantern. Not many people have met the lantern, the dais, or the frame, which means that a lot of people aren't getting to the point where they've seen more than one of the factions, but maybe there's just more factions, and that's why it seems relatively rare. Yeah, thanks for joining. Have a lovely rest of your Tuesday. It is Tuesday. I'm going to go do my paperwork. I'll see some of you back on Thursday.